Oh, oh la la, we've got some explaining to do. Okay, Fresnel zones. Okay, Fresnel zones are an important radio frequency impediment that the UAS pilot needs to have acute awareness and appreciation of. The Fresnel zones is made up of the entire area around the projected line of sight that radio waves scatter into after leaving the antenna. You have an antenna. You have an antenna. You have a radio wave that travels between them. The Fresnel zone is literally the space in which the radio wave travels. Okay? So this is the radio wave, and you have the top of the wave and the bottom of the wave. This is the Fresnel zone. Okay, it'll be this, like this, from antenna to antenna. In this space, in this cocoon-shaped space, the radio waves can then travel up and down until it reaches its antenna. It's the space, it's the air space in which the radio signal goes up and down. Okay. So, do the Fresnel zones come first, or do the radio waves come first? Yes. How is a Fresnel zone supposed to come without a radio wave saying we're going this high and we're going this low? Okay. The radio wave has to come first in order for the Fresnel zone to start forming behind it. Okay. The issue with this, so we've got our antenna and we've got our antenna. Now, let's say we've got buildings. Okay, there's buildings. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to go up, it's going to go into the buildings. It's going to be obstructed, it's going to take its time down there, it's going to come up, and it's going to shorten its height so that it can avoid going down into the buildings again. It doesn't want to be obstructed. So it'll make itself smaller at the top so that it can be smaller at the bottom and avoid the buildings. What happens with a thing if it gets smaller? Radio wave. The bigger or taller the radio wave is, the further it will reach. So if now the radio wave makes itself smaller, then it's not going to reach where you want it to reach. It's going to end there. Okay, why? Because it was supposed to have this height to allow it to reach there. But it now doesn't because it cut itself short because it doesn't want to go where the buildings are. That is the first issue. So the first thing about Fresnel zones is that they can be put down like that. The idea of Fresnel zones is not that they come first, but it's the understanding that we need to look at space in terms of the Fresnel zone before sending our radio link to know if the radio link is actually going to make it to our destination or not. Okay, so you're looking at, you're at this point, you want your signal to reach that point. What is in between us? That's all you're looking at. Now, the three things you need to be aware of is number one, obstructions along the path, okay, like buildings and stuff. Because if there's buildings, you might want to, stand on the side of the buildings, or you might want to be on top of the buildings, so that you can reach nice and down instead of having to try and go up and over and through them. Number two is water bodies. Okay, why are water bodies so important to be aware of? We anticipate the Fresnel zone to travel like this. Do you see that the Fresnel zone goes into the water? So what's going to happen is that our radio wave is going to go and go and go, and then it's going to hit the water. And whereas with the buildings will just obstruct it and slow it down, water will swallow the radio link. It's not even going to come back up. It's going to be cancelled out at that point. Okay, so that's why number two is water bodies, and number three is the ground. Let's say I've got from my remote control over here, and I've got my drone over here, okay, and this is the ground over here. That's the ground. Or let's put the ground so that the drone is actually flying, okay? So, the anticipated Fresnel zone is this, right? So now, what if the drone ends up being over here? What's going to have to happen with our Fresnel zone? It's going to have to extend. And do you see the issue? We now are expecting our radio wave to go through the ground. Remember, radio waves are still physical, still tangible. They can't go through things, they go around things. So you want this thing to go through the ground, it's not going to. What's going to happen? Yeah, it's going to go like this, and it's going to go like this, but then it's going to stop. And it will reach this one, but it's not going to reach that one. Because we wanted to reach that one, we wanted radio waves that go like this. And if we wanted that high at the top, then we wanted to go through the floor at the bottom. And it's impossible for it to do that. So what I'm saying is, if you want to fly, the further away you fly your drone, the higher up it needs to be. Because the bigger the Fresnel zone. Your Fresnel zone can't go into the ground. Okay, you're anticipating it to, but the radio wave won't. So if you fly your drone over there, this Fresnel zone at the top is trying to go up here. But meanwhile, it can't go there at the bottom because of the ground, which means the Fresnel zone is actually just going to be over here. And therefore, it's not even going to reach our drone over there. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Like when it reaches the ground, it like becomes like a 5 gigahertz frequency and shortens the distance.
The ground, I understand, the water, like flying your drone over
the ocean.
or something.
You want to know how people can do that?
Yes.
You can fly over the ocean. Remember that it's only up until the point where the Fresnel zone is hitting into the water.
Okay.
So as long as you fly over water and your Fresnel zone is not over, same as over the ground. If it's not going into the ground, you're good.
Okay.
So what I tell people with that is, if you tend to get 6 kilometers distance on land, you'll probably only get 3 kilometers distance over water. But again, that depends on how high up your drone is, because the higher up it is, the less the Fresnel zone has to go in and down, so it won't then touch the water. So we've understood the dangers of the Fresnel zones, right? Remember that a Fresnel zone danger is not something that happens, it's something that you need to anticipate. The danger is, will my Fresnel zone be interrupted from an obstacle, from the ground, or from water? All right, solutions to preventing Fresnel zone stagnation. Fresnel zone stagnation is the understanding that our radio waves will cut out. Okay, so in order to ensure that your C2 link system is operating to its maximum signal strength, the UAS pilot needs to ascertain that no physical obstruction. It's pretty easy, isn't it? Everyone focuses and is gung-ho on this whole Fresnel zones thing. But no, just focus on the radio wave. If it's clear the radio wave is going to go into water, why are you trying to think about the Fresnel zones and all of this crazy? Just think about the radio wave. Okay, if the radio wave is going to go in the water, then you know that the radio wave is not going to exist. Therefore, the Fresnel zone is not going to exist. Okay, my whole gripe with this is that we make such a big deal about Fresnel zones when Fresnel zones are secondary to the radio wave. The radio wave is the important thing. Okay, if you just imagine a giant snake and you can see the giant snake is going to hit a building, then of course it's going to hit the building, and of course there's going to be no Fresnel zones, because of course there's no radio wave.